Good afternoon,
Good
everyone.
afternoon.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Playoff Shift Show. The Shift Happens Playoff Shift Show. We've been beaking and poking at each other for the last couple shows already because we just can't help it. We're Canadian girls, we're Alberta girls, and Canada, you know us, we love our hockey. We're no different. And yeah. So I
Yeah.
kind of, feel like I already proved one point.
First of
Fourth,
all, I
fourth year.
apologize to any Kings fan that I'm not wearing my shirt. However, I have not
Yeah.
been
And
home
I'm
all
like,
week because
with
I'm
fans like
babysitting.
that, it's no wonder they're already out. No, I'm just kidding. You were a very I have to appreciate the sportsmanship that
Thank
you
you.
approached the playoffs and fourth year in a row, we take you out in that first round and then still, even when it was still an active round, you'd send me a message and go, "That was a good game. You
It
guys
was.
played really good." What didn't matter. Like I don't even remember who won that game. Maybe it was us, and you were like,
I think
"That
so.
was a
I
good
think you guys
game. Like
actually
you guys
won.
played really good." And
Yeah.
just really, I love the sportsmanship part of it, and I think we get a kick out of like the competitive side that comes out, and to just kind of
Yeah.
jab each other a little bit, but uh
Yeah.
it's all in good fun, and then we turn around and we cheer for the next level. So
Yep.
it's one of those things. And something else that I don't think as Canadians maybe we think about all the time, but it came to my attention when my daughter and her husband were in a hockey pool with their family, with his family. And when the Oilers were out, which was like their number one team, this, like, I don't know how many years ago this was,
Yeah.
then they actually did a little research to find out which of all the other teams still in the playoffs had the most Canadian players.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a Canadian team, like a
No.
Canadian based team. And so
No.
that's who they chose then to put their
Yeah.
cheering behind. So I
Mhm.
I think it's just something we love to love. And when it gets like the hockey at this level is really amazing. Like to see how they dig and try, and they're they're both at their fittest from playing all season, but they're also the most banged up because it's
Absolutely.
right.
Those boards, they sure get in the way, I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
it just
No, kick
yeah,
those
the
babies
net
out,
and
but it is so true. I have to agree. You know, a lot of people were like, "Okay, why do you like the LA Kings and what's, the big deal about it?" And at the time, so this was probably 8 years ago, um, and I too have been in the hockey pools and all that kind of stuff. And they all know like, oh, she's going to choose her Kings players to be put in and whatever. And I usually do choose a few, but yeah, if you actually look at the statistics and go, okay, where are they actually from? A lot of the Kings were from Ontario. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool because my relatives and my parents were from Ontario. So it kind of has that hometown feeling of like, okay, go team. And again, it's not like you're kind of cheering for both, right? You're cheering for your favorite team, but then you're also cheering for the Canadians because you just want the
yes.
Canadians to win, right? So as you said, all along, even though, okay, oh yeah, my favorite team is out and somebody else's team is out, this or that. And then we're like, okay, who's the next Canadian team? Because
Yep.
we're like, bring the cup home, bring the
Bring
cup
them
home.
home,
That's what it's
Mr. Stanley.
about. Yeah. So it's fun to beak at each other and do the things and be like, haha, you're out or
Yeah.
whatever. But again, going to the sportsmanship, it's truly just about having fun and going, yeah, like you guys really tried really hard. Um, and it's just the skills and what they're doing and what they're putting in. And it's like we can go and we can sit in the bleachers all we want and go, okay, well, there's the puck. You guys go and why aren't you
Yeah.
getting the puck and get down there and this and that? And it's like so simple from a bird's eye view,
Oh,
but
yeah,
they're
here on
out
the
there working
couch,
their
it's
asses off.
I know.
The
Yeah.
sweat's pouring down and they're
Yeah.
getting, like you said, thrown into the boards and they're almost getting cut open by skates, and
Or cross-checked across the face.
it's like that Hunger Games.
Yeah, stuff like that. And it can be really noisy, like the last game, especially in oil country, and going in and just super noisy, and that can be helpful, but it also can be a real distraction. I also think that some of these games are won and lost in some really fluky things. Like our last game, we were headed into overtime with a second left, and Leon, get your stick out of the way. I think that puck was going to go right behind Stuart Skinner, and then Leon's got his stick there, and boom, it goes in our net, and they win with 0.4 seconds left on the clock. Who knows what the overtime outcome may have also been the same, but we were all just like, okay, we're locked in for overtime.
Right? You think so.
Not happening. So
And
those
that's
kind of
what,
things, yeah, it
like,
can
the
really,
Kings and the Oilers were
yep,
doing that through
same
their
thing.
whole round. And I was like, oh yeah, we're up like 4 points. And then here comes the Whalers. I'm like, ah, shit. Like, oh, you guys are like right there. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no. And it tied. And I was like, okay. I'm like bracing myself. I'm like, oh, I don't want them to win. And then what happens overtime? And you guys scored. And I was like, okay. But I look at all that stuff going, like, the games are so close.
Yes.
And that's what really, really, it's like you're on edge, and you're like, it's the entertainment. And it's like, they're just like right there. And you're like, come on, guys. And come on.
And then you hear ping, and they get in a post or a bar. Yeah, it is really amazing. And how about that one goal where we banked it off the back of the goalie?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I love it.
Oh.
Like, to see the skills, it's just the speed
And the fluke of some goals. And you're like, how even? Like,
exactly.
This all off a pad, ding, and you're like, how the? And I think empty netters are so cheeky, because I'm like, there's just no skill in that. Like,
there isn't, but and I struggle with that too. When they pull their goalie and they put an extra man on,
yeah,
you kind of got just a extra defenseman almost, it feels like sometimes. Like somebody's got to kind of be hanging back a little bit. And they're still in their back of their mind going, there's no goalie behind us. There's no goalie behind us. And so I think it's a little distracting, but they do get that one man advantage. So if you can get by them and you can score, because they do miss the empty net too. So
do you think that's a good rule overall?
I actually heard a very interesting stat. So Kyle was telling me that, I don't know if it was on Spit and Chicklets or a podcast that he listens to. I believe it was on a podcast. And they were talking about the mathematical stats behind pulling your goalie.
Okay.
And those last 2-3 minutes is not the optimal time to do it. It's actually like way early in the game. So mathematically or scientifically or numerology, however they figure this shit out.
Let's do statistically.
Yeah, they actually have a better chance if they were to do that earlier in the game.
They do.
I think it's an act, like it's your last ditch desperation, like, this is what we got to do. And I can't imagine being that goalie sitting on the bench looking at that empty net, and you just want to be out there. But I don't know. I think it should be allowed. It's just, when you see that pop up on the scoreboard, empty net, and they've pulled them, you just think, ooh, they're just scrambling now.
Yeah, that's it. It's that last minute that it is the scramble. And I find, like you said, that advantage really is an advantage, because then they are in such a scramble. I don't even think their heads are on right. And then it's like, oh, it's the last minute. What happens when you're scrambling out the door, when you are in a rush somewhere doing something? You're not quite fully cognitive. You are like in a panic mode. So are they training the players specifically for those moments, for one?
Well,
And
it's
two,
like
like
playing
you
with your
said,
pants down or something. Like,
why not pull them out halfway through or whatever? Because then
yes,
it ups the chances of going, okay, well, now there's a 2-goal advantage
yeah,
because of an empty net. And it's like, okay, now we have to work harder and get our game faces on and actually try hard. Because sometimes I find there's teams that'll sandbag the whole entire game. And then it's like, then they put in the effort the last 5 minutes. And I'm like, well,
yeah,
what the hell, guys? Because you could have put in 10 goals through the whole game instead of trying to
yeah. If you
outshoot
played,
them at the end of the game
yeah.
when there's like, and you're scrambling
Well, they show they've got it in them, and then,
and the puck's
but
like a
it's only
pinball.
in a panic that it
Yeah.
happens, right? And so it is kind of, it's like, what? Where was that when we needed it sooner? And then what's interesting is if they're behind and they pull their goalie, now there's been a goal made on their empty net, and now they're behind one, and they're in the last minutes. They'll usually just put that goalie back in
Anyway,
and
yeah.
leave them there sometimes and just go, well, guess it's over.
Yeah.
But not always.
No.
They go back in, and then when they're in the offensive zone, then they pull them again. But yeah, that's another one thing. There is one thing I find annoying, and it happens in minor hockey and
Hockey.
ringette and that too. Is
Yeah.
it's when there's a delayed penalty,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like waving the goalie in and throwing another person on the ice. So, to me, that's the most ridiculous thing, because yes, I understand that it's allowed and you could use that advantage, but often the goalie doesn't even make it to the bench, or they do, and now you've just like, yeah, I guess they got to move around a little bit, but usually the goalie's pretty warmed up and moving. Maybe in minor sports, not as much, but there's that scramble. You risk having a too many men penalty. Um, that just makes, because the delay doesn't feel like it's long enough to be using that.
I don't think so because I'm almost like I'm one of those like if there's a penalty, friggin' stop the game
Yeah.
and actually deal with it. It's like
But you,
disciplining a child. It's like, okay, they went and put chocolate all over the couch, and it's like, well,
yeah,
how are you going to discipline them after when this has already just happened? And it's like, okay, 10 minutes later, the child off playing out somewhere else. They don't even know what's going on, and then they get called back in. Like,
that though,
you put chocolate everywhere. Yeah, and
yeah,
so
okay, in the chocolate case, I agree. But the people in possession of the puck shouldn't be penalized for their opportunity to still score. So you're not the ones
yeah,
with the
yeah,
penalty. Don't stop the play if you still have a live puck that you can play
yeah.
with. So
No, I agree.
so
I agree.
that's
Yeah,
where the delay does make sense. But if it's your own people and the call is on you and you're just like,
yeah.
touch the freaking puck already. Let's have this whistle and get it over with, because everybody's
Frustrating. It's
yeah.
so frustrating.
Um
Okay, the newest thing have been the coaches challenges. Have you ever noticed so many coaches challenges before this season?
I don't feel like there's more
Not saying
than
just
usual.
playoffs, but the whole
Yeah.
season in
Yeah.
general.
Um I haven't seen tons and tons of games, so I don't know, but I don't feel like there's been more. I'd be interested to know if the stats show that there has been more and how successful they are, because they
Mhm.
know that they risk a penalty if it doesn't go in their favor.
And do you think they should only have them during playoffs and not during regular?
No, I think it should be all the time, because you will. And but this was interesting because we had, I can't remember the exact scenario, but everybody's like, you gotta challenge that, you gotta challenge that. And the
And
goalie
then you
was
don't.
even saying you gotta challenge. But the comment was made that whoever we have, and it happened to be the Oiler game, and it was our opportunity to challenge, and our coach decided not to. And the comment was made that whoever it is that's up in the box that is our video reviewer
Yeah.
is so freaking amazing and accurate that they have found and if he says don't go, like, he's sitting there looking at those
Yeah.
and right away
The
looking at
review.
these
Yeah.
replays, and has an understanding of probably which way the refs are going to go with that, and has such a high rate of being accurate with his calls that they
Yeah.
defer to him
Yeah.
than what they see from the bench or what they've seen from the ice. And so I found that interesting that they do very heavily lean on and trust that, and every team would have that in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. I actually find it is quite interesting to see what they do call, because it's
Mhm.
like sometimes you're watching and you're like, I'm like 100% sure they're going to do a coach review like challenge, and they don't. And I'm like, why would you not challenge it? But then again, it's like it could be what part of the game they're at. What are the
Mhm.
stats of it happening that it's going to go in their favor? And is it really worth it?
Yeah,
Right?
that's a big risk to take because you could end up not only taking a penalty, but now getting a power play goal against you. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
That's a lot
it
of
is a
pressure
risk.
for a
Yeah.
coach.
Let's talk about playoff beards.
Playoff beards.
Oh my God. Some people
Do
cannot grow a beard and they really
you grow
struggle. I
your
don't know,
hair like? Do you grow
Nuge
your
is like still got a 14-year-old face. And then my biggest pet peeve, and he has this all the time, and I've mentioned this before. Freaking Austin Matthews, like, and his stupid little stash.
the pedophile mustache? I don't know. Okay. Oh, uh, some men can totally rock it
Mhm.
and some men can't. Like my boyfriend can grow a nice beard, and I'm not usually like a beard person, whatever, but it's like, I think it's just like the style or just something that they do. And it's just like, it looks really good. But it comes to a point when playoffs are, it's
Uh-huh.
like it's out of control. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
my boyfriend, but I'm saying the hockey players, it's like you can just, it's too much. It's like trim it, do something, but it's like a superstition. And you're like,
Yeah.
what's growing in there? What's living in there? What is like leftovers? Like,
Oh man.
and then you can
Um,
see the ones that don't grow it so good and they got like the patches
mhm.
going on. They look like, yeah, they're 13, 14 growing like the first thing. And you're like, oh, so cute.
I wonder what the story is behind that.
Oh, we should have totally.
Anybody, like, if anybody wants to drop a comment, I didn't do that research. I jotted down some things that I thought would be fun to talk about, but I was just like, um, I don't know what the background is on that, but it's very entertaining to see this. And then it gets better mostly if
Yeah.
they as they keep going and it's not quite as scruffy. Um, how
I
about the
bet you like it's got to feel in a way relieving to get rid of it after some time. I would think because it's like shaving your
yeah, if you
legs,
got the cup.
you know. Like, oh, yeah. And then maybe it's like
Like,
really
I'm sure the kings out
disappointing.
on the golf course have their nice, shiny, smooth chins exposed to the sun, and they're just loving life, if ish.
Yeah.
They know they lost in the first round, but there's a lot of teams like Calgary didn't even make the first round. So, you
Oh,
know.
I know. I was bugging my boyfriend about that. I'm like, well, whose team is in now? And then he was like, oh, whose team is out now? I'm like,
So what about that? I like to call it a mixed marriage because you'll see people in the stands wearing, you know, the opposing jerseys, and
yeah,
um, like have you ever heard like how serious do people get with their their competitive family, like this mixed marriage, mixed family, mixed dynamic, and you have maybe you have a playoff party and people are showing up in
their
a
gear.
variety of
And
jerseys.
I'm, I mean, I think it's totally fun. Like
Yeah.
I've watched playoff games before at like a pub a while back. And then, of course, when you go to an actual game, you're going to have opposing teammates, like the other team there, right? So I think in all fun and game of it, it's just like, yeah, you can heckle the other person and be like, oh, your team's going to lose and whatever. And I just love like the bantering and the fun of it because it's just so fun. And then again, ending it with like, okay, yeah, even though if my team wins, I'm down for saying, okay, I'm very humble about it going, or vice versa. If your team wins, again, I'm going to be like, hey, you guys did an amazing job and we'll get you next year, like that, like,
Shaking
and
in my
have
boots.
fun with it. Right. Yeah. You're
In
like,
my cowboy boots.
that's just because, like, again, the good sportsmanship. However, we have seen in the news, brawls. Was it Montreal? And there's like, there's the brawls on the streets, and it plain outright just turns
Yeah.
into just havoc everywhere, and people are like fighting and they're burning things, and they're like, it's a mess. And it's like, okay, like how, like, again, I understand some people, it's like their life. They breathe and they drink and they eat and they dress and their whole lifestyle is just hockey, 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 which is borderline too much.
Obsessive. Yeah.
Again,
When
it's
it
all
turns
fun when it's
violent and
like, yeah,
destructive, that's way too far.
yeah. So imagine that kind of a brawl within your own household.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine there probably could be some situations like that, right? And again, like if you are a hardcore fan, whatever like that, and your spouse is the opposite, they don't like your team at all, whatever, and it's like they're bugging you about it and going, well, you lost, you guys lost, you did this and you did that. And then all of a sudden you've got this sort of, feeling of like, well, you know, maybe I should just not even be in the house when there's a game on. You
Actually, my
don't want
best
to see
friend, her
anything. Like,
husband is a Bruins fan, and so I'll say,
mm-mm.
"Oh, sorry about, whatever." Or, like,
Yeah.
I'll kind of send us, and she says, "I don't even know I left the house." And it's not that he gets ignorant or violent or that she cheers for a different team.
Yeah.
She says it's just tense. So she just like pieces out and goes
Yeah.
does something else or goes
Yeah.
reads a
Like
book in
that's a
the
little
backyard or
different.
whatever. Like,
Yeah.
that's different, but it
Yeah.
actually can get um yeah, people can get affected.
Domestically.
So that was
Yeah.
something that I jotted down. What kind of emotional roller coasters do people go on? What are some life lessons? How about when overtime happens and all of a sudden it's like, or you think overtime's going to happen like the other night, and then all of a sudden, woo, fluky goal and switches. So that, just what kind of emotional roller coasters can
Yeah.
people sometimes get themselves really locked into? And I do think the party atmosphere and the drinking definitely contributes to
Yeah.
that as well.
Well, yeah, because then it ends up becoming more of a party type of situation, right? That atmosphere again, like there's drinking, sometimes drugs,
Mhm.
sometimes there's people placing bets, they're losing
Yes,
money.
that's a big deal.
It becomes like a gambling problem. Again, like I've gone into again fantasy leagues and I'm like, okay, I just pay one time, put it in the pot and whoever gets first, second, third get a portion of that. We all know that, but that's all fun and games, but there are professional bets
Yeah.
that are who knows millions of dollars.
Mhm.
Or here's my house
Yeah.
on the
Well, they could
line,
have a lot on the line. Yeah.
my car's on the line, my whatever's on the line, because it goes right down. And this is how bad it gets that I've seen that, like, where the hockey pools are right down to the team, the minute, the second, and
Oof.
what goal, like, what type of a goal it's even going to be. Backhand, what, like, and which player,
Wow.
like, so specific. And I'm like that is a lot on the line.
It
Like
is.
a lot on the line.
And this is something where we can find that parallel between life and sports of any kind. It doesn't have to just be hockey. We happen to be in playoffs right now with the NHL.
Yeah.
But like, so emotional roller coasters, these are a few things I thought might,
Mhm.
or when the unexpected comes along, say like all of a sudden overtime or a fluky something, penalties are kind of like a wall, like learning the hard way, and fights is another thing, and then celebrating like Sellies too, like the goals or the wins. How do we
Celebrate.
celebrate those, but in a healthy way? Because sometimes we'll see that destruction and violence happening in a celebratory way, which is really unfortunate to see. And
Yeah.
then how do we cope when our playoff dreams are dashed? Like, and you, first person, you could speak to this, and I who knows how far we're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and what about a little, like, when you want to break up with your team and you're like, you know what, this, I'm finding
It's
a new
time.
team to get behind,
Yeah.
or
I did. I absolutely did. I chose my Kings, and I was a huge Flames fan in the past.
yeah,
And yeah, like I just found over years that they were losing and losing and losing. And I'm just like, I don't know if I was like the loss of confidence in the coach, or just seeing like how distraught the players were getting. And it was kind of like an overall struggle, to the point where it's like, I mean, I wasn't so obsessed, but I was like, you feel sorry for them, but you just like, you want to kind of like, do we want to continue this journey?
yeah.
Right? Like, and again, um, at the time that I became more of a Kings fan, we were actually doing, my ex and I, we actually had been down to California quite a few times for trips and things like that. And I don't know, I just got more of an interest in LA in general. And then it kind of peaked, like, okay, well, I wonder what kind of like their team is like. And then again, I was like, oh, so cool to find out majority of their players were from Ontario. And I was like, okay, so it became more of a connection.
Well, and Gretzky was there.
Yeah. So it was like, it was kind of like a general mix of like who I was and general things that I liked and things like that. And I was like, okay, cool. And then over time, I'm like just watching them and just became a bigger fan of them. And I'm not saying like I've been to Flames games without my Kings being in town. And I have no problem cheering for Calgary because, again, I live here, of
Yep,
course, and
hometown
you
team
want
still.
to, yeah. And again, you're cheering not just for your city, but you're cheering for the actual players,
Yeah.
and cheering on how hard they're working, and they're trying to do this, not just for themselves, but for their city too. And so it becomes quite a heroic type of action in a way too. And for me, it doesn't matter what team, but I always have to say the most precious moment is when any team scores a goal.
Oh yeah.
And just that, again, that little celebratory, just their faces light up and they're like little kids at Christmas and they're like
Hugging
rocketed,
and
hugging. And I'm just like, yeah, and it's like, it's not just the win of the goal, it's the win for themselves. And I'm just like, what a boost, like mental health boost, and like just that feeling and everything. And yeah, every single game they're going in, it's 50-50, right? Every
well,
time.
and players in any sport where there's scoring a goal, or
Yeah.
pardon me, and usually there's a point to be scored of some kind, whether it's a ball, that like soccer or whatever, ball in the net, or the puck in the net, or somebody scores a home run, or even like scores, maybe not a home run, but they score a run. You hit
Yeah.
that home plate, and when you talk to players of all these sports,
Yeah.
that is the sweetest moment, that feeling of that score.
Yeah.
um I mean, it's almost synonymous with being called an orgasmic experience. It's just
Totally.
like,
I wouldn't doubt it. I
yes.
mean, just think of like winning the Stanley Cup.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
or a
never
gold
mind just
medal.
one game, like
Yeah,
they win the cup. So
yeah,
you can imagine
round upon round and series, and like,
the
yeah, it's
high
incredible.
of just like, it's got to last for weeks. Not only that, but then each player of the team gets to
Yeah.
take it to their hometown and show it off and go, hey, like, this is what I was a part of, and our team accomplished this. And then you see pictures up like on Instagram or wherever, and it's like they're there with their families, and they're at the local Tim Hortons, and whatever their favorite places, and
Dunkin'
they're showing
Donuts,
it.
whatever it happens to be in their town. It's true. Maybe it's the ice cream shop. I want to touch a bit too on the goalies.
Yes.
Because a lot of times people, they're a special breed. My daughter was a goalie and very focused, very strong player. And oh my gosh, I remember the reactions sometimes when the kids would file, because it was a boy, like it was a co-ed team, majority boys. And the team would file off and she'd have her helmet tipped back up on her head. And the other parents going, oh my God, we just got beat by a girl, you know, and that thing. But the goalies, and I want to get back to talking about women and women's hockey too, but the goalies, like, I don't know if you caught the game, the Oilers game Monday night, and the Kings goalie, the commentators were in that first period, he was spanking guys and slashing guys and knocking, like, and they weren't, like, he was really being aggressive, and he dialed it back in the second period. So I think, and that's Aiden Hill, and his coach is Sean Burke, who also, I guess, had played a bit that way too. So not his coach, but like his goalie coach. And they talked about it. You know, do you mention that to him between periods, to like, you're gonna, like, those should have been penalties, some of those, not my call, but just going off what the experts were saying, like they definitely should have, some of those been penalties. Do you just don't get in his head, let him play his game, or do you tell him, like, you need to just focus on the net and protect the net, don't get too aggressive, and don't pull a penalty here. So there's that. And then there's our we've just had this need of a goalie for a few years and really struggling, and, you know, one will just shine and then the other sits most of the season, and then they come in and they shine, and then we'll have one come in and shits the bed kind of thing, and then then the next time gets a shutout. So we're just kind of all over the place, and our backup is injured. I mean, we got Skinner going in again tonight. He did amazing in the last game, but they knew they needed to protect him as well. So it's really so much, it's so hard on the goalies. And in minor hockey, so that's my experience when my daughter was there, there'd be times where we had to make a call about whether we were going to go to a game, because we'd have to drive an hour or more, tiny little narrow back, you know, country roads, and can't see a thing for a blizzard. Well, we happen to have the goalie. So if we make the call, we're not going. Everybody sighs a big sigh of relief that somebody else made that call and it was the goalie's parents, and now they don't have to go. But it's so much pressure on goalies that they really have to be resilient, and it's really tough.
I know a few goalies myself. My boyfriend was actually a goalie too. And as we've been watching the playoff games and everything, and I said, you know, I feel so bad for goalies, especially that last minute where there's the empty net. Going back to that, I'm like, how do you even, like, cope? How do you just walk away from a game after knowing, like, you're the one that let it in, which could be the Stanley Cup winner? You know, that last second, that last whatever. But then you
There's
have
a whole
to also
team that
realize,
had to get through.
So, but then that's the caveat to that, right? It's like, that's why there's a team. That's why there's defensemen. They're supposed to pull together and help each other and do that. So it's not technically all on the goalie, but at the same time, I'm sure they feel a lot of pressure, because there are some goals, like, it just fluke goes in or whatever. And you're like, I'm sure as a goal, you're like, I'm so positive I blocked that goal, but it went in. And it's like, shit, like the game's done, and I freaking lost it, and maybe they get fired from it, right?
Yeah.
It just kind of varies. Like, and again, it's like, they're being assessed every single game, going, okay, well, if you screw up one more time, you're gone. Whereas the other team, I don't think feels they have that. I mean, there's maybe a couple players, but again, it's like, I think the goalies' jobs are always on the line. And I'm just
Mm.
like, I don't know if I could deal with that pressure. But again, it's the flip side of like, they got the shutout, they whatever, and they beat the team, and it was all on them. They won the Stanley Cup because they didn't let the goals in or whatever. So they can have a complete victory or a complete failure. So knowing that, that's what you have to walk into, that career of being a goalie, going, there's that spectrum. And how are we going to, the mental health of that spectrum
Yeah.
is not fun and games, I'm sure. So what do you do with it? How do are you training your kids going up? So like you know, are you training them as a goalie to be like, okay, well, are you going to be okay with the loss? Are you going to flip your lid? Are you going to, how are we going to treat these losses? It's the whole sportsmanship again, right? We're going to walk into it and go, you tried your very best. You did what you can. And you hope to God that the whole team is on that side,
Yeah.
your team, even the opponent team, going, good job.
Mm-hmm.
And I love seeing the handshakes at the end of the games, and the goalies, they're like, yeah, good job, good
Yeah.
job.
Bump, bump.
And,
Yeah, you did.
and
Respect, man.
the players, right? And that's what it's got to be that way. Otherwise, I don't know. I just feel so sorry.
I agree. It's a team, and then that's a whole
Yeah.
mentality of itself. Playing injured is another thing where they feel like they got to play through it and play injured. But it is a mutual respect, and I have caught and stopped kids when they are dissing. Like, we'll be getting out of a vehicle, and you'll hear, "Oh, there's the other team. Oh, the bunch of like," and they'll be
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
"Whoa, no." How would you like it if they're talking about you that way? And if they are, well, disrespect to them,
Yeah.
but like, shame on them. Or criticizing umpires and referees and that. It's like, you know what? Without the opponent, there's no game. Without the refs or the umps, there's no game.
Yeah.
We're here. This is a sport, and we're going to show up with integrity, with our best self, show mutual respect, set
Yeah.
an example, be a professional. And that's something that I really admire about some of the minor teams, is they expect their kids to show up. Say the boys, they show up in dress clothes and suits,
Yeah.
and that has a psychological effect.
It does.
It
Yeah.
sets a tone of a professional, and you act a
Accordingly.
different
Yeah.
accordingly.
Totally. I really, I like that structure, and I like the mentality of that going in. Okay. So as soon as like you step out your door from home, that it's game on, right? You're in that mode of like, this is professional, we're going in, and you keep it professional all the way, whether it's minor or NHL. I don't care where you're playing, but it's kind of like you said, it is a respect. And then it's like, you're teaching these young boys how to be true men as well. And then they can take that mentality, not just from the rink, but anywhere else they need to be in complete life, and go, there's going to be wins and losses anywhere you go. As much as heckling, the referees and everything is so much fun. But again, like, they're feeling that,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
They're
as a
humans.
player, if your mentality is being the best, you're leaving your house with your head up, and this is what we're going into, how are you treating them during the games too? How are you treating your coach? How are you treating the opposing team? So again, you could go and fly off the handle every single time, or you can go in with professional mannerisms and go, okay, and you have to look at it like it is a sport. and yes, I understand there's the business aspect to it where jobs are on the line and all that kind of stuff. But again, like how far do we take that mentality of, you know, losing badly and then it turning into something abusive and whatnot, right? There haven't been too many stories, I don't think ever, of anything too majorly happening, you know, outside of the hockey rinks, but other than fans going crazy and that end. But
Well,
I don't
and
think
you want to
NHL
go home
has anything.
and feel like you've played with some integrity and not
Yeah.
think like how you just lost your shit on somebody, or or you got in a pissing match with somebody in the stands and got ugly with like
Yeah.
that. You have to, you still have to live with that. Like that's
Mhm.
something that you take with you, and it feels icky, to be honest, like to be that way. And I've
Yeah.
witnessed even in, say, in the minor hockey, parents screaming at the opposing kids terrible things, and the dads, and it happened to be the dads on our team had went down and stood behind them and just like said nothing, but just stood there. And like, you don't talk to kids like that. It doesn't matter which team they're on. This leads me also to fights in hockey. What are your thoughts about fights, the fighting?
I went to a fight in a hockey game, broke out. Is usually how it goes. Some games there's way more fighting than there is hockey, right?
Yep.
So I always say, oh, there's we're going to the fight tonight, and maybe we'll watch some hockey because some teams are like the Battle of Alberta, right? We know
Mhm.
like Flames and Oilers, like there's probably going to be a couple fights, and it's all
Well,
good and whatever.
Chuck's not there anymore, so
Yeah, yeah.
so it's less of it. Go ahead.
But real quick though, I do want to say that even fighting regardless, but little kids are watching you out there play as well, going back to the integrity and all that too. So again, if there's little kids watching you fight, um, and they're watching their parents watch
Yes.
the fight.
Yes, that was my thought.
Yeah, where's that fine line of going? Okay, well, it's all fun and games in there, but how serious is it getting? So there, I think there's just that point of like, okay, well, you want to see a little bit, but when you know it's kind of gone over that sweet border of like it's a bit too much, then pull back and let the refs handle it and go, okay. I mean, I love the jerseys coming off and the gloves and they're like, but at the same time, again, it's like, was it worth it or whatever? And sometimes because of the suspense and because of like they're anxious and they're trying their best and they're so frustrated, you can see it on the ice and there's a fight coming. You can see it. There's like two opposing guys, and every so often they're like bumping, like they're egging each other on the whole game, and you're like, ooh, it's coming
Well, playoffs, they're in each other's faces every other night, and
all the
it's
time.
just, and more's on the line. So
Yeah.
that's usually
Mm,
a set up for fights.
yeah.
I love the hits. I love the good, like when you see a good solid hit that's part of the
Yeah.
game, not the dirty ones. Those, it's like, yeah, good job, rocked him or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't like the fights. I think
Not
not
the
only,
dirty
I
fight.
think they look silly because they have no traction really on their skates. So they're like,
Why?
anyways, yeah, I think it looks so ridiculous and it wastes time in the game. And it just kind of feels like it does kind of irritate me when people are cheering. It's like, oh, fight. I sell tickets with the local Rotary Club at the Rebels games here in Red Deer.
Okay.
And so you're walking around selling 50-50, raising money for the community.
Yeah.
And when there's a fight, oh, it's just a magnet. Like
Uh,
all ages are just glued up to the
Words.
the railing,
Yeah.
and if they're farting around going to buy ice cream or something, and there's a fight, they're just
Everyone
like, they
runs
forget
back.
forget
Yeah.
everything else, and they're running over because they got to try and see this fight. And I I realize it's a part of it, but some of it
Yeah,
sells tickets. It's not
right?
necessarily discouraged. It's, just it's an accepted part of the game. I don't love it. And
Yeah,
like I don't look away it's not, but yeah, if I'm gonna go get refill my drink, it'll be during a fight.
yeah. Well, I mean, again, yeah, there's like the goods and bads, and especially again during playoffs because if you're both forwards and you're always like, yeah, I'm gonna get you next game,
Yeah.
whatever, it can mess with you
Yeah.
in bad ways. Not like, oh, like the cute little, okay, well, I'm gonna get you back. Not like that, but it's like a serious way where it just like totally messes with their minds and it becomes like a psychological problem. And I don't know if anybody has ever dealt with like it's almost like stalking or whatever. And it's like again, just that fine line of like they don't even maybe want to play
Yeah.
because they're afraid to face that person or whatever.
Or the team's got your number.
Yeah. Like we know where you live. You live in
Well, that
Edmonton.
happened in Regina with the Rough Riders, unfortunately, and it was our own
Yeah.
fans, and a guy missed a field goal, I think it was in a really, it, I think it was even for the Grey Cup or something, but it was
Yeah.
like, it's so many years ago, but people actually did know where he lived, and they dumped a bunch of piles of manure on the front lawn, and there might have been more stuff, but I
Yeah.
think he ended up like they left town. Um, and like what?
Yeah. Like why? Why does it have to come to that? Right? Like
It comes
it's
back to those obsessive, that more of an
yeah.
obsessive nature,
Yeah.
and people
And
just,
again, like I'm just like I just love watching hockey. It's so
yeah,
fun and whatever. And then again, when you dig in so deep and you realize everything they have to battle each
mhm,
single game on like that's just the regular stuff. But then you have those extra things like we're talking about, like the mental games or the extra fights, or, you know, there could be even like a referee that they don't like
mhm.
that bugs them during a game or
Well, and their
always calls
health
her things,
too, and
whatever.
injuries, and what are the other dynamics that are happening as on the business side of it, that there's pressures that they face?
Oh yeah, like their team could be sold the next season or they're getting trades happening. Like I can't even imagine like you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to the playoffs, a trade happens and like your best buddy's gone. And you're like, well, shit, like there goes our lineup that we knew we were gonna get the cup and now it's like it's all messed up because so and so got traded.
Mhm.
And it's like, and I've seen that happen. We've had some trades here in Calgary and it was like Gaudreau, for one. He
Oh,
left.
that was, yeah, heartbreaking
It was
loss.
so
I mean,
heartbreaking, but then it was
that he
like,
lost his
okay,
life too, but not for
yeah,
hockey, but yeah.
but it's like when you have those
Johnny.
players and you love them,
Yeah,
it again, it's not just that they're a player, they become family,
yeah.
right? So, and again, we can look at those losses, like, you
Mhm.
know, we had Darren Deutsch, I can't even say his name. He was like a commentator on Sportsnet, and there was just this huge memorial for him. We've lost a couple people
Yeah.
that are even just like they're not right at the game, but they're a part of it in that
Mhm.
sense. And it's like you all like you feel something,
Yeah.
right? So it's like it doesn't just like okay, you get traded or whatever, but it's like it cuts to the bone sometimes, and you're like, oh man,
Yeah. They're family. Okay, let's talk about women in hockey.
yeah, let's do that.
We
Oh
got
my
the
goodness.
PWL, Professional Women, PWHL, sorry.
Okay, first of all, those girls in school that played field hockey, holy, like, stay away from them.
Rough.
So, do you think they started as field hockey players and then went into it, or
No, I'm guessing hockey, ice hockey all the way.
they just
I'm just guessing. I honestly don't know.
like How do you get
Because
your hockey skills?
there's a lot of girls that there was no, like my daughter, there was no league.
Yeah,
So they did it for fun. They just go out and do some skates and some practices. And they were like, whoa, there's enough kids here. So then more of them signed up for hockey, minor hockey, and she was at one point she was on the sweetheart line. There was five girls, and they were one line together, and it was yeah.
good.
I think they want to play. Most of them have a brother or cousins or friends that play, and or they've just been out
On
doing it
hockey.
on the frozen on the
Yep.
dam or whatever, wherever they can. And so this is a way to do that. And I have to say, so I grew up tiny, like on a farm and ranch, southern Saskatchewan, tiny, tiny little towns near me. But every little town had a rink.
Hmm.
And my brothers wanted to play, but they didn't. Like parents weren't into that. But we would occasionally go watch the senior team play in our little
Oh,
hometown.
the beer league.
And it, like, I mean, you're standing up against the boards. It's so freaking cold. And I didn't understand the game. And it really bugged me because I remember one girl standing beside me and her brothers all played. And
Mhm.
there'd be a whistle. And I'd be like,
What did they do?
what was that for? And she goes, oh, that
Yeah.
was offside. And I was like, what's offside? And trying to understand the game.
Yeah.
And then, like, kind of I learned it that way a little. I'm no expert, but and then my kids played, and so like I've always loved it even when I didn't understand how it went. And I think it's been a unifying sport because we're
Mhm.
in survival mode in the winter, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
gives us something to live for.
I think so too. I totally, again, like, I think just any sport, I don't know what it is, but like hockey, there's just that love and that unity of like those games. And it's like when the whole team loves one team or a specific player and it's unifying. It's just like, oh, it's so cool. But I do love seeing like, girls get out there and do their thing and it's like no one will stop them. And it's like just go for it and who knows what you can accomplish with it, right? And again, it's like, yeah, when we were growing up, there weren't any leagues or whatever for any girls. And then over time, slowly, they were kind of led on to the boys' teams because that's all there was.
Yeah.
And then they're accepted a little bit more and a little bit more. And now it's like, now we have our professional teams in a way. And I mean, the whole pay situation and the whole, I mean, I don't even know if that's even worth getting into, but I just feel in any profession that if you are putting out the same effort as everybody else, you should be getting paid pretty much the same. I mean,
Yeah.
if you are a dentist, male, female, you're doing the same job, you're doing whatever, okay. I just get there and play and do your thing. And if, especially, oh, I don't know what happened there, but if they have like
Yeah.
enough
Froze
sponsors and
froze a
all
little
that
bit.
stuff,
Well,
you
it's
know?
tough in this professional
Yeah.
sport like that because the money isn't there yet to pay them. And I don't think you want to hold
Yeah.
off creating a league till there is the money because you need the money, you need the games and the league to generate that money. So
Yeah.
I can see, where it's tricky to get that going. But how can they be focused if they don't make enough from the sport, then they need to be working elsewhere. So it isn't like the pro guys who can just dedicate their lives to practice and healing and all their physio and playing and traveling to the
Yeah.
game. So
I mean, it's so tough, like, especially when you just love a sport and all you want to do is just go and play. It could be any sport. It could be volleyball. It could be curling. It could be whatever.
yeah,
And you
baseball.
just want to go and play. And it's like, why is there such like a thing over it, right? So, I mean, yeah, I'm not like, no, they shouldn't play or whatever. I'm just like, you know what? If that's their love of sport, go for it. Like, not just that, but sometimes there's skills that maybe their puck handling skills are better than another player. Who knows? Each person has like a specific skill that it may be better than somebody else, and they're utilized on a team, and they're make a good whole team together, male or female, right? I don't think it matters. But the only thing that does matter is your child, whatever, male, female, whatever, they're going in, just push them and support them, love them through it, but teach them the good sportsmanship and go, hey, life is full of wins and losses, but teaching them, okay, how do we deal with the losses? And actually, how do we deal with the wins?
Yes.
Because when you win, is it just you? Is it your team?
And be gracious about it.
Yeah. And then make sure like you are thanking the other team for being there, showing up and putting their hard effort in. Like there may be a team that's going, they know that you're like this badass team and you're number one and you're winning every single game and they're intimidated. They still show up.
Yeah.
And that's like, that takes a lot of balls to do that.
When you don't have a win, if they don't, like, if there's no game or they don't show up.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think that's important is to encourage our kids. What did you learn from that? So which skill did you admire in the others that you want to improve on? Or which skill did you use that you saw you've gotten better at this year, or you've gotten better at since your last game? What other lessons? So that team play, how we handle our wins and our losses, how we can be respectful, and what can we learn? And what have we learned? Like celebrate, maybe we lost, but oh my God, did you see, how well I passed and set up that play or defended or killed a penalty, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And there's always an opportunity to shift our perspective, even in sports and playoffs.
Absolutely. And I think the children that are playing sometimes shift the adult perspective.
Yes.
As well, going, Mom, Dad, it's okay. Like, we're don't worry about it. Like, we lost, no big deal. And just sharing that perspective together, going, yeah, let's just go in and have some fun with it, regardless. Right? Because that, again, it can, you're just showing overall. Like, you don't want to be that one parent on the stands and you're pointing the finger, this, that, because, the next game comes around.
Yeah. Well, and coaches, I want to close with a huge respect for coaches and thanks. There are so many. All those pro players were once in the minor leagues with volunteer coaches for the most part, especially through the younger years, volunteer, then the coach's wife, who probably was the team manager. And there's so many volunteer hours, the parents driving them, and all those coaching, showing up and standing in those cold rinks, and just the time and the energy that they put into those kids and model. For many of us, we have, say, a memorable teacher that really impacted our lives, and I think coaches, the same goes. They have an opportunity to teach them incredible life skills.
Yeah, well, not just, again, coaches. Again, there's so much on them, but the teammates, they may be all like looking at their coach going, hey, I do admire him and I want to be a coach just like him. So it may not just stop playing, in the leagues or whatever. They may go on to coaching, and then maybe they want to coach like their kids' teams or whatever, because they just have that admiration. So for them, yeah, good for coaches. And again, they're up there. They got to, again, be up early in the morning. They got to show up to every single practice, whether they're feeling good or not. They have to have everybody in check too. So it's just like a parent, make sure everyone's in check. They're ready, good to go for the day, and put on a happy face and figure out problems. How do we deal with this or that, and push through it. Right. Yeah. So good for them. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Good, well, 7:30, we're playing tonight. Keep it classy. Hopefully it's potential elimination of the Golden Knights tonight. This won't be, we're live right now. This will air next week. We'll know what the outcome is. And on my podcast, at least, it'll go out next week, but it'll be live right away. And go Oil. We're so proud of you. all that you're doing. The Kings, you were very amazing opponents again. Thank you for that. And I really do love hanging out with you, Cari. This is just fun.
Thank you. The Oilers are all right.
Oh, you're kind. Team,
No,
yeah.
serious. It's actually, I mean, if Oilers are the last team left for Canada, I mean, you go. Like, bring it home. Like, that's all I'm gonna say. Like, we need it here. It's been like 30 years, whatever it's been. I mean, let's
Yeah. Well,
go.
we got 4 teams right now. Some are, oof, they're
Yeah.
struggling, but we'll see.
Okay.
Somebody's got
Okay.
to bring it home.
That's right. Okay. Go team.
Okay, over and out.
Okay. Bye, shifty shifters. We'll see you
Keep your
guys
stick on
in
the
a couple
ice.
weeks. Stick on the ice.